Well, the weather continues to be gorgeous. I have a frog in my throat today. I wonder, do frogs get people in their throats? Anyway, continue my walk. I'm here now on the eastern end of the island. Whiddy Island. Now once again, I have to get my body over a stile.
This is as good a day as any to start the rebuilding of life.
A rather steep climb here ahead of me. Here we have the skeletal remains in the form of a pile of ancient stones that used to be a family home at one time. If only the fabric of those walls could tell tales of past times. Can you imagine the stories from long ago that were told within the walls of this one-time family home? It's really now an animal shelter of sorts, covered in ivy and crumbling. The roof has come down, but the chimney breast and that gable end and the fireplace still are intact.
To see the horizon in the far, excuses were two for a penny.
You can see over there, there's a hare sitting, and there he goes, sitting in the sunshine, hiding from the breeze. And take a look at the vista before me. Looking across to Bantry town. This is a great lofty perch. So my wanderings and my adventuring continues on Whiddy. Sheep's wool being turfed around the place with the breeze here on this exposed hill. Now walking along here, the high point on Whiddy, you get a majestic, commanding view of the bay, Bantry Bay. Behind me is the oil terminal that I had you visiting with me earlier.
Only a short ferry ride from Bantry town lies Whiddy Island. Like other parts of southwest Cork, the island's climate is heavily influenced by the Gulf Stream, creating a unique ecology and a wealth of wildlife. Explore the island's abundant droves of red and purple fuchsia during the summer and autumn months, or the common butterwort, one of the few insect-eating plants found in Ireland. Besides its gorgeous natural landscape, Whiddy Island also hosts historical artefacts due to the strategic significance of local Bantry Bay's deep water anchorage.
Now I'm going to make an entrance, or an attempted entrance, across a rickety bridge there. Whether this is worthy of an effort or is it fool's danger? I'm going to cross here with extreme caution. So if you come up here to Whiddy Island and try to get access to the battery here, you will need to cross this bridge, but be awfully careful.
Discover the Napoleonic fortified battery that was built here by the British following the arrival of the French Armada back in 1796. Historically, the island was strategically important as it protected Bantry Bay and the bay's deep-water anchorage. As a result, the British authorities built fortified batteries on the island in Napoleonic times. This was to prevent a repeat of the arrival of a French Armada force at Bantry Bay, as had occurred in 1796.
I would imagine that these would be the living quarters of the military personnel at the time.
The island's name is of uncertain origin. It could derive from Old Norse, White Island. In the early 17th century, Whiddy Island was notorious as a place where pirates traded.
I reckon these were the sleeping quarters for the military personnel. I wouldn't fancy my chances of surviving a winter in here on an offshore island, knowing and being familiar with Irish winters. Now, walking along here in the passageway or avenue between the different billets, I feel I'm walking in Irish history, or military history, I suppose I should say.
Whiddy Island in Bantry Bay has a history of gun batteries built by the British in the early 1800s to defend the port against potential French invasions. Following the attempted French invasion of Bantry Bay in 1796, 3 batteries were constructed on the island, housing a total of 18 cannons. These batteries, including the middle, east and west batteries, were later abandoned in 1807. The West Battery especially demonstrates a high level of craftsmanship and provides a visual reminder of the island's strategic importance. The earliest history of Whiddy Island is not very clear, and it is not known when the island was first inhabited. However, it is estimated to have been around 4500 BC. The earliest records reveal that there were at least 2 monasteries and a priory on the island from 500 AD.
Now folks, if you do get your bodies out to Ilan Fuida, Whiddy Island, and come up here to this battery, for goodness sake, when you come to the bridge, reiterating one more time, be awfully careful crossing over to this part of the battery.
In around 1171, Whiddy Island was resident to the O'Sullivans, and also monks who were given land on the island by the High King of Ireland to make amends for the loss of their monastery in Cong after a raid. The O'Sullivans and monks took control over the bay and the inner harbour, while also rebuilding the castle.
Now, the handle, the operating handle of this cast iron pump from a long time ago have been stolen. And if you remember in some of my walking videos, I've referred to pumps like these being vandalized, nicked, stolen and sold on. So this one, somebody fell in love with the handle, which is a shame really, because this is also a structure of history.
In the late 1600s, Whiddy was bought by Captain Richard White, who was an English settler. Captain R. White began a production of fishing on the island. In 1701, Captain R. White's son was born on the island. His name was Richard White, after his father, however, was later known as Councillor White, who went on to purchase what we now know today as Bantry House. Whiddy Island went on to be very successful in the pilchard fishing industry in the 1700s. They acquired a fleet of 186 boats, and there were also 3 fish palaces, which are places where they could cure the pilchard for fermentation, pickling, smoking or pressing to prepare the fish for eating, selling. At that time, the population of the island was 817 people. In 1796, the English decided that because of the French invasion forced under Wolfe that they would build 3 gun batteries on the island, which stationed 18 large cannons to aid in the protection of the port. These batteries were later abandoned in 1807. During the Great Famine, the population of the island dropped to around 250.
I'm standing here, I think, which is the highest point in the island. And I have a good bit of walking now to do. I'm here looking down on the structure of the battery. The roof is still intact. They're genuine quarry slates, quite large for an Irish perspective. But my hat is ready to take off into the Bantry Bay environs. But looking across there at the mainland, on the other side of the peninsula, the other side of Bantry Bay, there's some spectacular sunbeams dancing down the slopes of very large, rugged, but serene-looking mountains. I'm looking up there to my left to the oil terminal, and I can see the burned-out shell of the Whiddy jetty, still there, but now a haven for wildlife. And I'm looking up there at the avenue, as I call it for the sake of putting a title on it, the avenue between the different billet establishments left and right. This particular one, this is the remains of a door, the only one that's left, complete there with its old-fashioned opening mechanism. Can you remember those? You put your hand on there and you put your thumb on the opener. But it would have had a solid door below 3 glass panels. On a lighter moment, take a look at the bench seat in there. Now, once again, the precarious crossing. One step at a time. Now you can see how far down. If I can lean over the edge, that is, I'd say 60 feet. So if one of these planks or sleepers gives away, they'll be looking for Jim for a while amongst the brambles and the bushes. And there is what greets you when you come to the end. In the last months of World War I, 1918, the Americans built a naval air station on the island. The US Navy's Air Wing set up a seaplane base on the eastern end of the island, and the air crews in flying boats patrolled the shipping lanes around the Fastened Rock and the areas south of Kinsale, where the RMS Lusitania had been torpedoed a few years earlier. Keeping watch for German submarines and shipping, the aircraft took off and landed in Bantry Bay and were pulled up a concrete ramp to the airfield for servicing and storage. The airbase closed in 1919 and little remains of it today. The history and folklore associated with the station is extensive. The Marines were housed in timber structures, on stilts, and large concrete base left behind when the base closed became a dance hall for the locals. With boats travelling over every Sunday from Bantry. To the northeast of this vantage point, situated on the mainland, is Ard na Gashel, from where a Packard truck was brought to the airbase on a timber raft. Until the construction of this facility, cement was unheard of on the island, and it became locally known as the soft stuff that hardens. The construction and operation of this base was known locally as the Whiddy Works. 2 shops became established nearby to take advantage of the spending power of the Yankee dollar. It is known that at the same time 1 egg fetched the priceless sum of 1 penny. extracted myself from the stiff easterly wind that's been howling at my body for the last hour. So I'm making my way further across pasture land, surrounded by many sheep. And I got to see if I can make my way towards the old Air Force base. So now I'm trying to get my bearings here and follow the animal tracks towards the old Air Force base. So I'm going from field to field, but I can see in the distance the large slabs of concrete. Folks, I'm still trudging along Whiddy. I'm making my way down slowly but surely towards the old Air Force base. And a lot of barbed wire fences to get my backside over. Now if you look there in front of you right now, you can see the old castle ruin. And I'll also make my way up there, all being well. The terrain underfoot here is very, very, very lumpy. Many animal hoofs. So be aware of your ankle if you're coming this way. And now we're coming into boggy territory. So I have to again pace myself. Luckily, we've had quite a long spell of exceptionally dry weather. After getting myself across the mother and father of 2 or 3 wet fields, I arrive here at a large slab of concrete. This is where the American had their base.
Whiddy Island housed a US Naval Air Force station during World War I, operating from 1918 to 1919. This seaplane base, located on the eastern end of the island, patrolled the southwest waters, including the Fastnet Rock, and was instrumental in convoy protection. The base also had a radio station that communicated with the US and Russia. The purpose to patrol and protect convoys in the southwest Irish waters during World War I. The Curtiss Model H seaplanes, which arrived in September 1918, and from 1918 to January 1919, with patrols continuing after the armistice. In all, 5 Curtiss H model planes were based here in Whiddy Island during 1918. These were pusher type of aircraft with the engine and the propeller behind the pilot. The H-16 Large America were equipped with 4 Lewis machine guns, a bomb load of 4 230-pound bombs, and a crew of 5, a pilot, 2 observers, a mechanic, and a wireless operator.
So that was the site of the American Air Force Base, where the seaplanes used to take off and land, patrol around the Fastnet Rock. So now I'm patrolling around a very boggy piece of ground here. Now, as you can see, this is pretty horrible stuff to be walking on. But I don't give in to weather or terrain, so I'm on terra firma once again. My destination is there in front of you. Hopefully there's not another boggy place to traverse through. There's a very, very, very severe easterly wind hugging me there for the past couple of hours. And just after seeing two beautiful golden fawn coloured hares taken off there in front of me and just gone out of sight. That's the third hare I've seen in the past 40 minutes. Now, for those of you watching and contemplating or perhaps considering coming out here and visiting the eastern end of the island, for goodness sake, wear strong boots. I can see I'm back into another terrible boggy place here. If you come here in your nice clean Nikes, I'm sure and confident you won't return home with nice clean Nikes. You might be throwing them in the bin. Now all this island walking gives one a great perspective on walking the Emerald Isle and its offshore islands. This is not an easy walk for those of you that might not be confident, willing and able. The field surface is pretty chewed up. An inland lake, void of all its water. The lilies are in the centre, but the water is not there. So over there is the highest part of the island, and where I was earlier on, where the battery is, the gun battery. Now to get from one side of a field to the other, one needs to get over a wall. I don't have a style, but if I go in there, I'm in the wrong field. So I better go and do a recce. It's been a long walk and a difficult wall jumping exercise, but I'm here. Well folks, sitting here, a little bit of shelter from a very historic castle, the ruins of one, here on Whiddy Island, with a view out across the bay to the mainland, with the patchwork quilt landscape of sunbeams dancing on those high hills on the other peninsula across the bay. It is truly a magnificent but rather wild place. But as you know, I love my islands. I absolutely love walking and adventuring through the islands wherever they are, and I have done many islands around the coast of Ireland, starting up with the northwest, down the west, the southwest and the south. And I've actually run out of islands, one little beautiful island that I must do probably in 2 weeks' time. But today, here on Whiddy, the sun is shining, it's pretty warm, but there is a fair breeze. But it's only the second day of April. When I visit these islands, I find I'm not looking for anything, but I get everything. If you can understand me, I get everything. And I'm just looking down there now, and in the field there's another 2 hares, one chasing after the other down there as you go down towards the ocean. But I get everything on an island. I start out with no agenda. I walk alone, I visit alone, I photograph and video alone. But I get so much, and I go back so refreshed, I go back so invigorated. I go back home so fulfilled, full of fresh oxygen. My body and my lungs are freely moving. It is a tonic for me. There's no point in labouring the point much further. Walking for me is an absolute necessity. Visiting islands is just sublime. I love the islands. It's just stunning here. The majestic scenery and the peace and the quiet is just heavenly. And Jim now is contemplating having a lunch. So perhaps this might be an ideal place to have it. I'm used to having lunch in the most of panoramic vistas, and this is one of the best so far. So what else can a man be looking for? Also, there's not another human being to be seen anyplace. Livestock and one solitary walker. Just the way I like it. So let's go and have lunch now. So now, folks, I take you further on this little adventure of ours on Whiddy Island. And I'm going up here to visit the historic Tobin House, which is here in a little forest, majestic looking ruins. So let's go and investigate here, okay?
The island was a place of residence for families during the potato famine, as evidenced by the connection between the Tobins and Whiddy Island. The historic Tobin House here on Whiddy Island is a notable structure with ties to the Tobin family's origins and the island's past. While the specific details of the Tobin House itself are not widely documented in the search results, the Tobins are known to have been residents of Whiddy Island, particularly during the potato famine, and the family's history is linked to the area.
Now, one could not classify this structure as a humble Irish cottage. So inside there is a stairs of sorts. This was quite a big house. But the front door is still here, and it's mostly intact, as is the frame surrounding. But look at the stonework and the plasterwork circumnavigating the front door. It's now been taken over by a new resident known as Ivy, and has well and truly made its home here.
The house, if it existed, would likely have been part of the island's history as a place of residence and a hub for local life.
There's the remains of some outbuildings here at the side. But it is some structure. It's a well-built house for somebody that could well afford it during the times. You can see the ceiling boards are beginning to lean down, and over there on your left hand side is the cast iron stove. So this is probably the kitchen, and that cast iron stove would be a collector's item for somebody now. The historic Tobin House here on Whiddy Island. Just thinking here as I come through this little grove of trees at the back of the historic Tobin House, Wouldn't this make a good movie location? Well, folks, this is how you clock up the extra kilometers. When you go sticky beaking and deviating around places. Sticky beaking means, before somebody asks me again on the socials, what does sticky beaking mean? Well, I heard it first time when I lived down under, mate. It's when you go a curiosity when you start wandering in and out of places and checking this out and checking that out. But like I said, when I'm out and about and I'm here and you have to make an effort to get here, I'm going to go sticky beaking. So I'm sticky beaking here in the sunshine. Just been thinking there as well when I spoke to you about making a good movie location. This would make an excellent movie location for an Irish horror movie, an Irish horror story. Special effects crew could create marvels with that house, and this is the ideal place for a story. It's out of the way. You won't be interfered with by onlookers and so forth. It's ideal. You come in by boat, you bring your equipment in by boat, and you go home by boat. Anybody there in Disneyland, Netflix, looking for a movie scout, location scout? Moi. Number one, the historic Tobin House on Whiddy Island. So now, folks, we depart the historic Tobin House and I make my way to the third island battery defence establishment, and I'm hoping that it's in this direction. Well, everything is pointing to that direction on my tracker, so just tag along with me, and if I'm lost, well, you're lost, but you'll probably have a better chance of finding home than I will, being already at home. Oh, it's a gorgeous day. Got a lot of walking done again today. The ground is horrendously rough. And we have more iffy ground to get through. And we just have to plow into it and keep going. There's no point in standing in bewilderment and which way will I go and where will I put my feet. You just have to get into it and keep going. The things I do for adventure. Look at that curved vista. The Emerald Isle in all its glory today. I'm on top of my kingdom. Not a fellow human being to be seen. And I've just come from a way off down there. And I can tell you, it's a great cardiovascular workout. So folks, that concludes my trek here on Whiddy Island. Another island that I can knock off the bucket list. The wind is pretty severe, so I hope you can hear me. The sun is shining, but I just want to say one thing. First of all, I recommend you visiting Whiddy Island. Tim and the ferry people are gems. They have a little pub here on the island, and I think a restaurant. So if you come out here over some weekend, don't forget to go in and give them a little bit of business. They're a salt of the earth people. But I thoroughly recommend you visiting Whiddy Island. There's a lot of history here. There's a good bit of walking to do, and it's not all flat. But if you've got the proper boots and the proper stamina and the inclination and the determination, get your ass out here. So the wind is howling at me here, so I'm going to put away the technology and make my way down towards the ferry. So listen folks, have a good day. Look after each other. Take care. God bless you all. And thank you once again for tagging along. And we'll catch up on the next island trip. There's another island, a little island, a beautiful island coming up. And I think I'll take that one on next week, the middle of next week. Folks, have a good day. God bless you all. Bye-bye.